Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at the Pedlar, sometimes called the Conceited Pedlar, as it was presented in a strange show. So this is a thing, an entertainment written by Thomas Randolph for performance at Trinity College, Cambridge on the 1st of November 1627. It's been printed, or was printed a few years later, with another text, Aristippus, which may or may not have been performed around about the same time. It may have been performed exactly the same time, but it may have been performed slightly separately. So Thomas Randolph was writing some stuff, which was entertaining some students, presumably. This is a one-person show, and you may notice there's three of us. There were going to be four. There might be four later on. So we are going to pass the sections around as we go along, and see how it goes out. So I'm your host, Robert. We also have Eric, and we have Tom. Wave for the wonderful audience at home. So yes, it's a series of speeches, jests, stuff, and we're going to sort of dive into it now. So I'm going to ask Eric if you could do the first little chunkette until you hear the bell ring, and then I'll ask Tom to take over.
So from Generous Gentleman?
Indeed, I believe that is performative, but I'm not,
yeah,
we shall see.
Okay. Generous gentlemen, such is my affection to Phoebus and the 99 muses that for the benefit of this royal university, I have straddled over 3 of the terrestrial globes with my geometrical rambling, viz. The Asia of the dolphin, the Africa of the rose, the America of the mitre, besides the terra incognita of many an alehouse. And for all your sakes, for whom I know to be the divine brats of Helicon, the lawful begotten bastards of the thrice 3 sisters, the learned silly foals to Monsieur Pegasus, arch-hackney to the students of Parnassus. Therefore, I charge you by the 7 deadly sciences, which you more study than the 3 and 4 liberal sins that your he's may be that your ha-ha-he's may be recompense of my ridiculous endeavors. I have been long in travel, but if your laughter give my embryon jests and but safe deliverance, I dare maintain it in the throat of Europe. Geronimo rising from his naked bed was not so good a midwife. But I see you have great desire to know what profession I am of. First, therefore, hear what I am not.
And to find out what he is not, we'll go over to Tom.
I am not a lawyer, for I hope you see no buckram honesty about me. And I swear by these sweet lips my breath stinks not of any state actions. I am no soldier, although my heels be better than my lip, the better than my hands. By the whips of Mars and Bellon, I could never endure the smell of saltpeter since the last gunpowder treason. The voice of the mandrake to me is sweeter music than those maxims of war, those terrible cannons. I am no townsman, unless there be rutting in Cambridge, for you see my head without horns. I am no alderman, for I speak true English. I am no justice of the peace, for I swear by the honesty of Mittimus. The venerable bench ne'er kissed my worshipful buttocks. I am no alchemist, for though I am poor, I have not broke out of my brains against the philosopher's stone. I am no lord, and yet methinks I should, for I have no lands, I am no knight, and yet I have as empty pockets as the proudest of them all. I am no landlord, but to tenants at will I am no Inns of Court gentleman, for I have not been stewed thoroughly at the Temple, though I have been half coddled at Cambridge. Now, do you expect that I should say that I am a scholar? But I thank my stars, I have more wit than so. Why, I am not mad yet. I hope my better genius still shield me from a threadbare black cloak. It looks like a piece of Beelzebub's livery. A scholar. What? I do not mean my brain should drop through my nose. No, if I was what I wish I could but hope to be, but I am a noble, generous, understanding, royal, magnificent, religious, heretical, and thrice illustrious peddler.
Having reached the point where we know who he is, more importantly, who as opposed to also who he isn't, let's just take in some of these. When I was reviewing this text before we started, I was sort of going, will any of these jokes land? Is it all a little too in of itself? But actually, I think a lot of them do. I think he's a bit self-indulgent, and it's the world has moved on, but there are some really nicely structured gags.
Yeah.
That you sort of understand even if you don't get the references. So I like the way he's going, I have travelled all the great places, Asia, Africa, alehouses. It's even if the precise thing that the flip there is really nice. Just gentle wordplay as well. The 7 deadly sciences rather than the 7 deadly sins. Little things like that. The idea he's no Inns of Court because they presumably drink considerably more than the students of Cambridge. True or not, who knows? Half coddled at Cambridge. And then the bit about the scholars at the end of going, I wouldn't, look at those, because presumably if it's to an audience of scholars, they've all got their black gowns on. So he's literally going, you all just look like Beelzebub's servants. Oh, keep me away. I don't want to be, So he's nicely insulting the audience in a way that the audience probably actually finds rather charming. And all the little gags of I'm not this because I wouldn't be that, and I'm no alderman, for I speak true English. There's interesting little word plays here. The venerable bench never kissed my worshipful buttocks is a phrase that I feel should be used more often. Any thoughts from the room about this little thing? Was it impenetrable for you, or did it land for you? Because it doesn't necessarily land for everyone. But I was liking it more than I expected to. Thoughts?
Yeah, up to date comedy, or should we say witty? Well, good wit in the writing, and enjoyable.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, I was gonna say just like sort of. Yeah, well, also because we've read other texts like Club Lord stuff and sort of I have no townsmen unless there be rotting in Cambridge. It's kind of like there's no women who I don't think there are any women in that play like Club Law, but then there's kind of stuff that like you kind of it's kind of the same vibe. The townsmen against the students, basically, and
yeah.
I don't know. It just does so many things. It's got so many layers. I don't know if everyone would get like sort of, Monsieur Pegasus and the arch hackney to the students of Parnassus and that kind of thing. But it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's the because I think it works better if you have horse-drawn carriages as a daily feature of your life. Then the whole idea of Monsieur Pegasus arch hackney to the students of Parnassus works a lot better in that context. I think there's a lot of it that you need to know the context. You need to know you need to have tuned into this kind of language, but it does also speak to what students are like, which is getting drunk and and possibly getting up to things they shouldn't be getting up to, all over the place. And and who'd be a student? Which of course this peddler isn't, even though he's almost certainly played by a student. There's that sort of little meta in joke. Any other thoughts before we move on, Eric?
Well, also there is kind of if I mean, obviously, being a student, you might know like plays or whatever, or the trope was just existent by this point. We had that sort of Patient Griselle one where her brother was a scholar who was I think possibly from, I can't remember what college or university, that I don't know if it's even mentioned, but I seem to remember there was the second Patient Griselle we did was kind of basically had this brother who kind of didn't have any money because he was a scholar, which seems to be a stereotype. I wonder why.
Yeah, and Parnassus plays, which are also from Cambridge, which you brought up before we started recording. Different colleges, but still Cambridge. That's basically the thing, is that once you're a student, and you leave university, there is no jobs market, you are screwed. And that was basically the entire narrative of the play, which, considering it was produced by students, was surprisingly cynical, or unsurprisingly cynical. Okay, let's carry on. Eric, I'll ask you to read the next paragraph. I will do the song. I may not sing it. And then I'll ask Tom to do the paragraph after that, and then we'll pause again. So, you are a peddler. We are all peddlers, for we are legion.
I am Spartacus. Wait, no. But what is a peddler? What's that to you? Yet for the satisfaction of him whom I most respect, my right honourable self, I will define him. A peddler is an individuum vagum, or the primum mobile of tradesmen, a walking burse or movable exchange, a Socratical citizen of the vast universe, or a peripatetical journeyman that, like another Atlas, carries his heavenly shop on his shoulders.
I am a peddler, and I sell my ware, this brave St. Bartholo or Sturbridge fair. I'll sell all for laughter, that's all my gains. Such chapmen would be laughed at for their pains. Come buy my wits, which I have hither brought, for wit is never good till it be bought. Let me not bear all back, buy some the while. If laughter be too dear, take't for a smile. My trade is jesting now, or quibble speaking. Strange trade, you'll say, for it's set up with breaking. My shop and I am all at your command, for lawful English laughter paid at hand. Now will I trust no more, it were in vain to break and make a craddock of my brain. Half have not paid me yet, first there is one owes me a quart for his declamation. Another's morning draft is not yet paid for 4 epistles at the election made, nor dare I cross him who does owe as yet 3 ells of jests to line priorum's wit. But here's a courtier has so long a bill, 'twill fright him to behold it, yet I will relate the sums. Item, he owes me first for an imprimis. But what grieves me worse, a dainty epigram on his spaniel's tail cost me an hour, besides 5 pots of ale. Item, an anagram on his mistress' name. Item, the speech wherewith he courts his dame. And an old blubbered scowling elegy upon his master's dog's sad exequy. Nor can I yet the time directly gather when I was paid for an epitaph on's father. Besides, he never yet gave me content for the new coinings of's last compliment. Should I speak all? Be it spoken to his praise. The total sum is what he thinks or says. I will not let you run so much o'er the score. Poor Duck Lane brains, trust me, I'll trust no more. Shall's jest for naught, have all have you all conscience lost? Or do you think our sack did nothing cost? Well, then it must be done, as I have said. I needs must be with present laughter paid. I am a freeman, for by this sweet rhyme the fellows know I have secured the time. Yet if you please to grace my poor adventures, I'm bound to you in more than 10 indentures.
But a pox on your skeleton fury. I'll open my shop in an honest prose. And first, gentlemen, I'll show you half a dozen incomparable points. I would give you the definition of points, but that I think you have them at your fingers' ends. Yet, for your better understanding, a point is no body, a common term, an extreme friend of a good man's longitude, whose center and circumference join in one diametrical opposition to your equilateral doublets or equicrucial breeches. But to speak to the point, though not to the purpose.
And we'll go around the room. Eric, you can be number 1. I'll be 2. Tom, you'll be 3.
The first point is a point of honesty, but is almost worn out and has never been in request since trunk hose and codpiece breeches went out of fashion. It's made of simplicity ribbon and tagged with plain dealing. If there be any knaves among you, as I hope you are not all fools, faith by this point of honesty, and the best use you can put it to, is to tie the band of affection. But I fear this point will find no chaplain. Some of you would rather sell than with Demosthenes buy honesty at so dear a rate. I could wish that the breeches of Bowsers, stewards, taxers, receivers, and auditors were trussed with these honesty points. But some will not be tied to it. But whilst, Tom, it is dangerous untrussing the time.
2. The next is a point of knavery, but I have enow them already, yet because I am loath to carry mine any longer about me, who gives me most shall take it, and the devil give him good on't. This point is cut out of villainous sheepskin parchment in a scrivener's shop, tagged with the gold of a ring which the pillory robbed him of when it borrowed his ears. If he do but fasten it to the new doublet of a young squire, it will make him grow so corpulent in the middle that there will be nothing but waste. This point of knavery has been a man in his days, and the best of the parish, 14 of them, go to our baker's dozen. The definition of him may be this: a point of knavery is an occult quality tied on a riding knot, the better to play fast and loose. He was born in Buckram, has run through all offices in the parish, and now stands to be president of Bridewell, where I leave him, hoping to see him trussed at Tyburn.
3. Amongst all my points, a point of ignorance is the very alderman of the dozen. This is the richest point in my pack, and is never out of fashion at Inns of Court. If you buy this point, you are arrant fools, for I'll give you this gift, that you shall have it in spite of your teeths.
Eric, continue.
The next is a point of good manners that has been long amongst a crowd of clowns because it was only in fashion on this side trend. This point is almost found in our college, and I thank the heavens for it. It begins to be tagged with Latin. It has been much defiled, but I hope to see it clean washed away with the soap of good government. This point, to give you a little inkling of it, begins from the due observance of a fresh man to sophisters. And there it ends with the sede majoribus.
5. Next point is a point of false doctrine, starched from the codpiece of a long-winded Puritan. The breath of Arminius will rot in him. Tag him with a piece of Apocrypha, and he breaks in sunder. Truss him to the surplice, and his breeches will presently fall down with the thought of the whore of Babylon. He hates unity and church discipline so far that you cannot tie true love's knots on him. Cut off his tags, and he will make excellent strings for a Geneva Bible. I would have these points anathematized to all the leather breeches in the company. 'Tis made of a dangerous stubborn leather, tagged at one end with a self-conceit, at the other with wilful opinion. This point is fit for no service but Lucifer's cockatrices. But why talk I so long on this point? It is pity it is not licensed.
6. If you like my points, why do you not buy? If you would have a more full point, I can furnish you with a period. I have a parenthesis, but that may be left out. I know not how you affect those points, but I love them so well that I grieve at the ignorance of my infancy, when my most audacious toes durst play at spurn point.
And Eric closes off with some verse. I don't think it's actually a song, I think it's just in verse.
Who will not pity points when each man sees, to begging they are fallen on their knees? Though I beg pity to think I do not fear, censuring critic whelps, no point, monsieur. If you hate points and these like merry speeches, you may want points for to truss up your breeches, and from the close soul may never be moved, that painting points doth clasps and keepers love. But if my points of here at all offended, I'll tell you a way how all may be amended. Speak to the point, and that shall answer friend. All's not worth a point, and there's an end.
And there we'll pause. So we've had a lengthy exchange where knowing about clothing of the period really, really helps. Otherwise, it all sort of doesn't make any bloody sense. Because there's an awful lot about points and what was the other element as well that was coming up, and just tags and points, and just the way that clothes were fastened in those days, and so it's constant punning on that, playing around with that. There's an interesting rather. This point is cut out of villainous sheepskin parchment, tagged with the gold of a ring which the pillory robbed him of when it borrowed his ears. So if you could have an ear nailed to the pillory post. So the thing is, that's when the gold ring was taken from his ear, because he probably lost a bit of his ear in the process. So it's these kind of details that at the time I'm sure were hilarious, because at least people got the reference, but whereas there you have to sort of unpack all of that. We're on much shakier ground. That whole sequence about points feels like you need a lecture to get through before you start it, just to make sure you've got all the reference really clear in your head to follow. Some of them are really light. I really liked the 0.5, which I was enjoying rather a lot, about the long-winded Puritan. His breeches will presently fall down with the thought of the whore of Babylon. So his trousers will unloose themselves with immoral thinking. I kind of enjoyed that. And going back to the song, before all of that, there was some nice stuff in there. I was quite enjoying a lot of that. We've had these things about writing epigrams for courtiers, writing witty stuff, being there as a writer on demand. Again, it feels more like a studenty thing than it does that a peddler would actually sell. It feels like more a student gag. But I could be wrong on that front. Obviously, peddlers are selling ballads and things like that in real life, and that kind of content would be part of their material. yeah, he is the ultimate market, a one-man marketplace, and I quite liked his opening bit on the movable exchange. He does like to say the same thing in different ways. And his song he describes as a pox on Skelton's fury. So sort of it's not really Skeltonic, so I don't know if it really is representative of the kind of verse form that Skelton was writing 100 years prior to this. But it's a nice little reference to throw in, following on from his song. Thoughts? Sorry, I was wittering on there. Who wants to leap in? Tom.
I think the wit and the intelligence shines through. And I'm the only thing, and I think it would be fabulous staged. The only thing is how to pitch it. And I mean, because a lot of the points, forgive the pun, would be explained by the as you say, the dress and the pantomime that goes along with it. But the intelligence just bubbles through. It's sparkling, I think.
It does feel like the kind of thing, because it's not very long. There's part of me thinking that it could work as an educational thing, where you do 20 minutes of explaining some context of stuff to do with fashion or clothing, and then, and anything else that we think where the jokes won't land, and then you actually do this. And that's probably a nice little 45-minute show that might be educational as well as entertaining. Educate, inform, and entertain. It might be a bit much. Tom, you've actually, I'm sure you've had to manipulate some points, as it were, when we did the Lord Mayor show. Some of your costuming presumably had that kind of fastening devices going on there. So, you, in a sense, you probably understood this more than I did. I didn't get a costume for that show.
Let's not make a point of that,
Robert. Eric.
It was just me hitting an invisible symbol right there. Yeah, I just found it funny because obviously, like, I don't know, I was trying to picture what you would be doing while talking about points. Was it just like sort of actually showing the thing? Like, this is a point. The point is no body, and so on and so forth. My brain was going, oh, yeah, it's either that or just sort of like, just like the slow striptease. Which was probably not what he was doing, but it's just kind of because he does this section about the point of knavery and jumping all around the different points. Just made me think that he's probably unfastening something or just showing literally points.
Yes, it might be that he has literally 6 points that he is showing, and each of them has, because it's full of modern day satire, he's got more props to come.
I was thinking, like, during the song, I was thinking this is totally like Cats. I mean, not the sort of content, obviously, but just sort of, it made me think of Gus the theater cat specifically, where it's kind of, oh yeah, he does everything. He can play you sort of tottering on the stage. I can't remember the lyrics, but I just remember that that's the kind of vibe I got from this. It's a musical. This is basically stand-up comedy with some musical elements thrown in.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think this is a little mini stand-up show.
But I think it's stand-up and musical and comedy, but directed by Guy Ritchie or someone like that. You've got to have that sort of like Danny. You've got to have that down and dirty type of.
Oh yeah,
Pedlar.
Yeah, I don't know if my Mockney accent is working for it, but that's what that does seem to be the kind of thing, isn't it? That's going on there. Okay, he has more props. So he's probably got a little laid out some stuff on a table. So I'll ask Eric, you'll take up the first item, which is a looking glass. I'll take the next one, and then we'll go to Tom, and we'll just rotate round unless we stop at some of them, which we may or may not. But then the peddler brought forth a looking glass.
The next is a looking glass. But I'll put it up again, for I dare not be so bold as to show you some of your own faces. Yet I will, because it hath strange operations. If a cracked chambermaid dress herself by this looking glass, she shall dream the next night of kissing her lord, or making her mistress a she-cuckold, and shall marry a chaplain the next living that falls. If a stale court lady look on this reflection, she may see her old face through her new complexion. An usurer cannot see his conscience in it, nor a scrivener his ears. If a townsman peep into it, his Actian's furniture is no longer invisible. Corrupt takers of bribes may read the price of their consciences in it. Some fellows cannot see the face of a scholar in it. If one of our jewel-nosed, carbuncled rubric Boniface that can venture the danger of seeing their own faces in it, the poor basilisks will kill themselves by reflection. If a blind man see his face in this, he shall recover his eyesight. But I see no pleasure in the contemplation of it, for when I look into it, I find myself inclined to such a dangerous disease that I fear I cannot live above 4 years longer. However, I hope after my disease we shall drink the parting blow. If any this looking glass disgrace, it is because he dared not see his face. And what I am, I will not see, faith say. 'Twas the whore's argument when she threw it away.
We'll just pause there. This is interesting. So he's trying to sell a magical looking glass, which is, again, full of little sort of semi-satirical little throws out there. There's a couple of there's a repetition in there. He's basically got the same joke twice. Usurer cannot see his conscience in it. Corrupt takers of bribes may read the price of their consciences in it. I used the word conscience twice. That's lazy. I'm not sure why a scrivener can't see his ears. Is that for putting pens behind their ears or something? I don't know what that is. I'm sure someone will be able to tell us in the comment section. Will know what that means. I like it. I think it's amusing. But I don't know why.
Well, also the whole Actian's furniture. I mean, it took me a second, but then I'm like, okay, so like, yeah, he'd be able to see that he was cuckolded or sort of has some horns. I was like, okay.
Yes, Actian's furniture, right? Yeah, cuckolding, absolutely. I've got it. Yes, that was just I didn't get that one at all.
Yeah, it took me a while. I was like, what?
Bit too clever there, Thomas. That's a didn't get that in the moment. And comedy, you have to get the gag in the moment, otherwise it's cannot see the face of a scholar in it. So if you're holding up a mirror for scholars and they can't see the face of a scholar in it, they might despair. If a blind man see his face in it, he shall recover his eyesight. Thank you for that paradox. Nicely done. And then, when I look into it, I find myself inclined to such a dangerous disease that I fear I cannot live here above 4 years longer. I'm not sure why.
I was going to say vanity. That's the way I interpreted that, but I don't know if that's just like, being sort of indoors all day kind of would have made him pale and ugly in a way, so to speak. Not really, but quite.
Yes, I'm not sure what the parting jest, as it were, about the whore's argument. Is that going back to the question of the stale court lady who sees her face before makeup rather than the makeup that she's put on? Or her face in youth kind of idea. It's a challenge to the audience. If any of this looking glass disgrace, it is because he dares not see his face. It's basically anyone who doesn't want to buy this mirror, it's because you're afraid. You're afraid to see the truth. The truth, man, you sheeple. Wake up. Kind of thing. It's almost working for me, but not quite. It's frustrating because I think there is something here. Okay, I'm gonna read the next one because of what I'm holding up. Then the peddler brought forth a box of cerebrum. It's a box of brains. But now, considering what a philosophical vacuum there is in most of our Cambridge noddles, I have here to sell a sovereign box of cerebrum, which by Lullius's alchemy was extracted from the quintessence of Aristotle's pericranium, sodded in the sinciput of Demosthenes. The fire being blown with the long-winded blast of a Ciceronian sentence, the whole confection boiled from a pottle to a pint in the pipkin of Seneca. We owe the first invention of it to Sir John Mandeville, the perfection of it to Tom of Odcombe, who fetched it from the grey-headed Alps in the Hobson's waggon of experience. I swear, as Persians use by this my coxcomb, this magazine of immortal roguery. But for this box of brains, you had not laughed tonight. Buy this box of brains, and the tenure of your wit shall be soakage, when as now it is but fee simple. These brains have very admirable virtues and very strange operations. 4 drops of it in the ear of a lawyer will make him write true Latin. 3 grains will fill the capital of an university gander. The terrestrial head of a high constable will be contented with half a dram. 3 scooples and a half will fill the brain pan of a Banbury brother. Come, buy my brains, you ignorant gulls, and furnish here your empty skulls. Pay your laughter as it's fit to the learned peddler of wit. Quickly come and quickly buy, or I'll shut my shop and fools you'll die. If your coxcombs you would quaddle, here, buy brains to fill your noddle. Who buys my brains learns quickly here to make a problem in a year, shall understand the predictable and the predicable rabble. Predicamental, and the predicamental rabble, who buys them not shall die a fool, an exoteric in the school. Who has not these shall ever pass for a great acromatical ass. Buy then this box of brains, who buys it not shall never surf it on who buys not it shall never surf it on too much wit. Okay, that's a win for me. I liked that one a lot. Yeah, what better thing to sell to students? Extra brain. Yeah.
I was going to say caffeine, but I mean, they didn't exist, or well, you know, not in that sense at this point. But yeah.
Yeah, he's basically selling Pro Plus, isn't he? Does that exist anymore? That was 20 years ago. Christ. Yeah, brains. That's a big tick from me. I liked that bit. That's it. I mean, some of it was a bit obscure, but I think the basic idea of it is very, very strong. Okay, Tom. Then the peddler brought forth a whetstone.
But leaving my brains, I come to a more profitable commodity. For considering how dull half the wits of the university be, I thought it not the worst traffic to sell whetstones. This whetstone will set such an edge upon your inventions that it will make your rusty iron brains purer metal, and your brazen faces. Wet but the knife of your capacities on this whetstones, and you may presume to dine at the Muses' ordinary, or sup at the oracle of Apollo. If this not be true, I swear by the doxy's petticoats that I'll never hereafter presume of a better vocation than to live and die the miserable factor of coney skins.
And then the peddler brought out gloves, Eric.
I have also gloves of several qualities. The first pair is the first is a pair of gloves made for a lawyer, made of an entire lodestone that has the virtue to draw gold unto it. They were perfumed with the conscience of an usurer, and will keep scent till wrangling have left Westminster Hall. They are seamed with indenture by the needlework of mortgage, and fringed with the Noverant University. I would show you more, but it is against the statute, because a latitat have been served lately upon them. And few of you need any gloves, for you wear cardavant hands.
And then the peddler brought out nightcaps. My next commodities are several nightcaps, but they dare not come abroad by candlelight. The first is lined with fox fur, which I hope to sell to some of the sophisters. It hath an admirable faculty for curing the crapula, above the virtue of ivy or bitter almonds. Nay, the pottage pot's not comparable unto it. I have another fit for an alderman, which Actaeon, by his last will and testament, bequeathed to the city as a principal charter. It was of Diana's own making. Abumazer's octocosticon was but a chamber pot in comparison. I could fit all heads with nightcaps, except your grave, overwise metaphysical heads. Marry, they are so transcendent that they will not be comprehended within the predicant of a nightcap. And then the peddler brought out ruffs, Tom.
I also have several ruffs. First, a ruff of pure Holland for a Dutch drunkard. A ruff of cobweb lawn for the university statues. I have a ruff for the college too. But by this badge of our college, my reverend lambskins, our backbiters say, our college ruffs are quite out of stock. I have no more ruffs but one, and that is a ruff of strong hemp. You should have them, but who will, at the Royal Exchange of Tyburn. As for plain bands, if you find any in the scrivener's shop, there is a good hope honesty will come in fashion again. But you will not bestow your money on such trifles. Why? I have greater words. Will you buy any parsonages, vicarages, deaneries, or prebendaries? The price of one of his lordship's cracked chambermaid. The other is the reversing of his workshop's ties. Or you may buy the knight's horse, £300 too dear, who, to make you amends in the bargain, will draw you on fairly to a vicarage. There be many tricks, but the downright way is 3 years' purchase. Come, bring in your coin. Livings are majori in pretico now, than in the days of the Doomsday Book. You must give presents for your presentations. There may be several means of your institution, but this is the only way to induction that ever I knew. But I see you are not minded to meddle with any of my honest, levitical farmers.
And we'll pause there on the roughs. So yeah, we've got various sort of essentially one-liners here. Whetstone to sharpen your brains. You've bought some brains. You can then sharpen your wits with the whetstone. The gloves have several properties. Perfumed with the conscience of a usurer, and various things. Not quite sure precisely. Some of those gags there. For you wear cordivant hands. I'm not sure what's going on there. Nightcaps seem to be... We're going for something to do with late night stool passing kind of gags. The whole thing about crapula and chamber pots and things. I'm wondering if that's what that's about. I'm not sure. Some of that. I think with all of these, there's one line that I'm really liking, or one or two of the gags, but then it sort of gets a bit too clever, and I lose the thread and some of the references that I don't get. And then the roughs. I like that there's a rough made of strong hemp. You may have them who will at the Royal Exchange of Tyburn. That's a gag I can get. If you're going to get something to go around your neck, you might as well get a nice hempen one for your execution. Thank you very much. Ching. Thoughts on the room on some of these things that you didn't get, things that you did get. I'm perfectly happy to demonstrate my ignorance of what's going on here, because there are a lot of these references where I'm sort of going, I'm struggling with these references, and I feel that that's becoming more of a problem. There might be a trimmed down version of this, but it might be quite short. Thoughts on those?
Again, I think it's sharp-witted. I think you just have to get with the text bit, sharpen up the delivery of the text, and I don't think there'll be. I think it's all in the delivery of this sharp-witted, this delivery of that's there to just lambast the audience and call them out for every pretense and that they have. And I still think it would make a great, one man delivery, one man show type of thing.
I mean, I think the struggle I'm having is that there are so many references that, even with a bit of context, I'm not quite fully getting, and I wonder after a while that even if you did prep the audience for some of the context, whether it's all going to land or whether it's actually going to get to a certain point where you're just going, we've listened to you talking for a while. Thank you very much. My brain has now switched off. Which happens with storytelling or one person works anyway. There always is a point when the audience will be tempted to switch off if you're not careful. So I do worry. Eric, any additional thoughts to throw in before we go to our final item? I think there's only one more item from the bag.
I had no idea what the otoacousticon was. I was like, oh yeah, this is totally a listening thing, but then maybe not. But yeah, apparently it's something from a play. I had to look it up. So it's something from a play that we have not done yet. I think. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, a lot of these seem like some of them seem quite obscure, but then some of them are quite funny. As you said, there's kind of some are just like, just kind of one line pops out and then the other ones are like, what are you saying, man?
Yes, that would be Tomkis's play Abu Mazar the Astronomer, apparently. I'm assuming that is extant. And that is one we're actually going to be doing at some point. I will actually look that up, hopefully before we finish this, just to have a quick look. I'll endeavour to do that. I don't think we're going to be doing it anytime soon. Thomas Tom Kiss is far in the future, as far as I can tell. But hey, let's have a little look. I'm going to do this live. Live opening of a book, people. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to open Wiggins and see what Wiggins says about it.
That's entertainment.
Yeah, this is the action that they're here for.
Totally.
Oh, yes. So it would be a reference to a play produced for Trinity College, Cambridge. So it would be a very in-house, though it's a play that was produced about over a decade earlier. So, but it was printed, so it's the kind of thing that you would know of, because it's been in print for over 10 years. So yeah, it seems to be part of the text and part of the reference to a thing, which, as that's a play from 1615, we'll probably get to in about 2 years' time, at our current run rate. So don't expect that particular reference within the text to be explicated by us any time soon, people. You never know, you might get lucky. But if we continue chronologically, that'll be a while. Okay, so we have our final bit, as it were. I will, we'll alternate as we go around again, and see how we go. So I'll start with Eric, then what did Eric do? No, yeah, Eric, then Tom, then me, and then Eric, and then I'll close off, I think. So yeah, we have slightly more saucy material now, potentially, as now the peddler took out a wench made of alabaster.
But now expect the treasures of the world, treasures of the earth, digged from the mines of my more than Indian paunch. Wipe your eyes that no envious clouds of musty humors may bar your sight of the happiness of so rare an object.
And Tom?
Come from thy palace, beauteous queen of Greece, sweet Helen of the world, rise like the morn, clad in the smock of night, that all the stars may lose their eyes and then grow blind. Run weeping to the man in the moon, to borrow his dog to lead the spheres a begging. Rare empress of our souls, whose charcoal flames burn the poor colt's foot of amazed hearts. View this dumb audience thy beauty spies, and then, amazed with grief, laugh out their eyes.
Here's now a rare beauty. Oh, how all your fingers itch. Who should be the first, Chapman? This will be a dainty friend in a corner. And were it not better to embrace this pretty shambles of beauty, this errant poultry of perfection, than to tumble your soapy laundresses? Is this like your draggle-tailed bedmakers, when a man shall lie with sea-coal ashes and commit adultery with the dust of his chamber? Methinks this peerless paragon of complexion should be better countenanced. She would be a sharper edge on your appetites than all the threepenny cutlers in Cambridge. I am a man, as you are, and this naughty flesh and blood will never leave tempting. Yet I protest by the sweet soul of this incomparable she, I never had any acquaintance with the pretty libraries of flesh, but only this. This is the subject of my muse. This I adorn with costly epigrams and such curious encomiums as may deserve immortality in the chamber pots of Helicon. And thus my furora poeticus doth accost her. Eric accost.
Sorry, I'm too busy laughing. Just the chamber pots of Helicon. Fair madam, whose everything deserves the close stool of a king, whose head is fair as any bone, white and smooth as pumice stone, whose natural boldness scorns to wear the needless excrements of hair, whose forehead streaks are heart's commands, like Dover cliffs or Goodwin sands, while from those dainty glowworm eyes Cupid shoots Cupid shoots plum pudding pies, while from the arches of thy nose a cream pot of white nectar flows. Fair dainty lips, so smooth, so sleek, and truly alabaster cheek, pure saffron teeth, happy the meat that such pretty millstones eat. Oh, let me hear some silent song, tuned by the Jew's trump of thy tongue. Oh, how that chin becomes thee well, when never hairy beard shall dwell. Thy coral neck doth statelier bow than Eo's when she turned a cow. Oh, let me, or I shall ne'er rest, suck the black bottles of thy breast, or lay my head and rest me still on that dainty Hogmagog hill. Oh, curious and unfathomed waist, as slender as the stateliest mast. Thy fingers too breed my delight, each wore to natural marguerite. Oh, pity then my dismal moan, able to melt thy heart of stone. Thou knowest how I lament, and how weep, snort, condole, look sad and scowl. Each night so great my passions be, I cannot wake for thought of thee. Thy gown can tell how much I love, thy petticoat to pity move. Then let thy peddler mercy find, to kiss thee once, though it be behind. Sweet kiss, sweet lips, delicious scents, those how sweet a Zephyrus blows from thence. Blessed petticoat more blessed her smock, than that daily busseth her buttock. For now the proverb true I find, that the best part is still behind. Sweet dainty soul, deign but to give the poor peddler this hanging sleeve, and in thine honor by this kiss I'll daily wear my packing-ness, and quickly so bear thee more fame than Quixote the knight errant's dame. So farewell, sweet, deign but to touch, and once again re-bless my pouch.
Is it not pity such ware should not be bought? Well, I perceive the fault is in the emptiness of your learned pockets. Well, I'll to the court, and see what I can sell there, and then carry the relics to Rome. Bring me my cow staff, will you? Some friend must now perforce make haste, and bid my boy to saddle me my wooden horse, for I mean to conquer Troy. And end. Okay, so the peddler, for a student audience, is trying to peddle statue pornography, sex toy. I'm not sure what is the best modern analogy for what to do with this. It feels to me that if you're doing it today, you kind of just need a blow-up doll or something, because it's really quite disturbing, because he's really talking about making out with the statue. It's a bit Pygmalion-esque. It's also Dr. Faustus-y, isn't it? It's bringing forth the image of Helen of Troy. But he's selling it, like it's to a load of horny students that, you don't need to have relations with women. You can have this. If I was doing this 20 years ago when I was at university, it would probably be it was at the height of lads mags being about. It'd be that kind of thing you'd hold up and go, "Whoa! Look at what's on the cover of this," kind of thing. Which as satire works very well. It's also quite disturbing actually if you just take it on it's there's some really weird things. I'm not sure about suck the black bottles of thy breast. I'm not sure how that works. But yeah. There's daily busseth her buttock. So yeah, that's sort of disturbing. It's sort of funny. all at the same time, which and I think it's not a bad place to end the show in a weird way. Tries to sell porn to students. Right. I wasn't expecting that, actually, to be honest. I hadn't read that bit very thoroughly when proofing the text. I just knew he had a statue and he was doing a thing with statue. Right. Okay. Didn't know he was going quite that far with the statue. Thoughts from the room? I've been talking a lot because I'm in shock. Eric.
Well, I thought that the exercise was basically how far can you get? It's like that sort of the cockerel joke we found in 100 Merry Tales, where it's like, that is my cock. Sort of like, how far can you go before you start to corpse? But I know that for the best proverb. For the proverb true, I find that the best part is still behind. It's like, come on. Yeah, it has some good lines, but it's just, yeah. But then you get the proverb line, and then you get Quixote the knight, which is kind of weird.
I don't know. Quixote would be known in England by this point.
Yeah.
It's I'm not sure precisely when it comes across, but it's 1610s or something like that, or early 1600s. I forget when it's actually written, but it's also when it actually reaches England in translation, or the original. Certainly, people were doing adaptation material from it in the early 17th century. So by 1627, it's clearly a reference that people are getting. I've got in brackets here 1605 to 1615 as a dating point for that. So which is nice. I didn't know that off the top of my head. I just knew he was relatively contemporary. So yeah, other thoughts on this bombshell of a closer, but also just on the piece overall. I
think it's a forgive me. I think it's a period piece, but it chimes with the Del Boys of the world. The peddlers, and again, find it amusing, entertaining, maybe a little bit too long, but certainly done in period and with that Del Boy wit and energy to sell at all costs.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're absolutely right. It's a period piece. I think you can take the bones of it, but it's not like there's a plot. It's a series of things, and I think if you're, you'd throw most of the text out by the time you got to doing it. If you try to do anything too modern with it, all the stuff about points, you can't really do it without, setting up points and setting up that period. And yeah, maybe just a trimmed down version, given good context, would actually work quite nicely. I certainly know of a number of audiences who would sit there nodding and appreciatively pretending that they got the jokes, and while being politely bored out of their minds. It's a living. Eric.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I was enjoying the sort of this fair madam be whose everything sort of deserves the close to the king. Basically the description made me think of a play we read, like Narcissus, I think it was, where you get like these really random descriptions of Narcissus, who's meant to be this paragon of beauty with like coral cheeks and sort of, I don't know, alabaster hair, or I don't know. It was this ridiculous description though, where you were like trying to figure out how it was another student play also. Where we were trying to figure out what on earth Narcissus actually looked like based on the description. Yeah, it was just fun.
I have to say, I mean, just generally, though they get self-indulgent or they get too full of their own period to fully land, by and large, I'm really liking student material that's come our way. Stuff that's, coming from their entertainments and keeping them, which are done in this slightly more perhaps amateurish way, but yet are really well written and have energy and verve. And even if we don't get all of the references, we're getting a taste of it, and it does taste. It was really nice to read. I was enjoying it. It flowed quite nicely. It used language in a really fun way. I think I might play around with this on my own for a while and see what comes out. I am by trade a storyteller and a monologuist, and that's even when there are other people on stage with me. Yeah, that might be a thing. Any final thoughts before I close the session? It's only a short one today. Nothing too long. Any final thoughts to close on that we've not already said?
I like the alabaster.
I'll get you two.
The
One
price
for
of
weekday, one for Sunday best.
Yeah, I don't know. Just it's fun, even if it's dirty fun. It's fun to read and like sort of, yeah. And also just the comparisons, like while from those dainty glowworm eyes, Cupid shoots plum pudding pies, and it's kind of like if you play it full, sort of play it up, just it's too funny. I wonder if you could do this as a sort of like with the 100 Merry Tales, where we've chosen some that sounded good, some that were like, some that were funny or not problematic, and some that were. So we kind of separated them that way. And I was wondering if you could do this as that, so that you don't have to do all the looking glass and gloves and stuff that doesn't land quite as well.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of looking at each of those individual items and saying we'll just sort of trim out the less landy stuff. So, whetstone, gloves, nightcaps, ruffs, rather than whetstone, gloves, because I think there are a few references in there that if on a first pass like this, I'm not quite sure what the joke is for that one. I sort of see what's going on, then that's not going to work for an audience. I mean, we will go through this and footnote the hell out of it and figure out what all the references that we can are, because it's not a text that there's that much on. And it's actually a shame that a couple of the people who could have been here tonight aren't, because they would actually probably been able to give me more chapter and verse for an enjoyable video for the viewers at home. Sorry about that. The people who knew hopefully was going to talk at great length about points sadly couldn't make it. So, well, never mind. There'll be another time. But yeah,
us instead.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's lots of these pieces. I mean, I certainly for the podcast there'll be an audio version of it uncut. But I think there is potentially a mini show that pops up randomly in Cambridge.
Yeah.
As part of something bigger, perhaps. But take it randomly to a comedy night in Cambridge. Hi mate, I've got a type 5. Will this do?
It'll go down, it will.
Definitely. Well, especially if you get that sort of history, humanities crowd. If the departments still exist by then.
And thank you. Yeah, you've just explained to the audience that the intelligent people didn't make it tonight, so they've been entertained by the three goons. Peter Sellers is Eric. Ned Seagoon.
High bar.
Is Robert Crighton.
What?
And it echoes.
And on that note, I will close the session. All that remains to thank our wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Whose natural baldness scorns to wear the needless excrements of hair.